Hey, what's up Spartans? Christian of Matafied Gaming. For many, the Didact was a character that left much to be desired for his character and story. For starters, having him appear just once as the main antagonist in the video games and then having his story continue in a comic book was probably not the best decision. If that's the case, why are we even talking about the Didact? Well, for one reason, and for one reason only, he is returning. You heard that right. We will once again have this enigmatic Forerunner boss. Want to know how? Continue watching until the end. Let's begin. The Didact, or should we call him Isodidact? You are Didact? To find this unique character's full story, we could dive into the trilogy of novels titled The Forerunner Saga. But no need, that's why we're here, to explain the history and answer any questions you may have. I think that deserves a subscription to the channel, don't you think? To understand and talk about the return of the Didact, it is necessary to know his origin story. As previously mentioned, the Didact is in reality two different entities, but also one and the same. Let me explain. There once was a Forerunner boy named Born Stellar Makes Eternal Lasting. No, really, that was his name. Born Stellar, for short, was the most rebellious amongst his brothers, even refusing to follow his father's footsteps to become a builder, the highest and most powerful rate of the Forerunner society. As a result of this, his father sent him to a step family of miners on Edom, so that he may learn discipline. I think it's safe to say we all had that crazy aunt and uncle that set us straight. Well, this is somewhat similar to what happened with Born Stellar. While he was there, learning about the mythical precursors, he would meet two humans, Chakas and Morning Riser. Chakas' mind would later be converted into the monitor known as 343 Guilty Spark. Both Chakas and Riser helped Born Stellar find precursor artifacts, and on one of the searches they stumbled upon a cryptum that turned out to be where Didact was entrapped. You may be wondering why the Didact was entrapped inside this cryptum to begin with. Just imagine that this is the equivalent of being sent to the doghouse by your wife. In this case, the Didact's wife, the librarian, except this is light years ahead and the doghouse is now a technologically advanced cryptum. Once the cryptum was opened, Didact took Born Stellar and both Chakas and Riser on a nearby ship that was left there by the librarian. During their travels together, the Didact performed a mutation on Born Stellar that would allow him to access the domain. Through the mutation, the conscious, thoughts, and memories of the Didact were transferred over to Born Stellar, and the complete physical reincarnation of the Promethean Supreme was completed. Following the transformation, the Didact made a pact with Born Stellar that he would be able to return to his original self once he finished his mission in the Great Forerunner Flood War, and thus there were now two forms of the Didact in this era, the newly created Isodidact and the original Didact. As the war went on, Isodidact would constantly try to persuade the librarian into abandoning her mission on saving the human race from the inevitable activation of the Halo rings, but unfortunately for him, his pleas were never fulfilled. On the other hand, the Didact was planning on winning the war with his own tactics, by creating Promethean soldiers out of his former rivals, the humans. The librarian was not too happy about this at all, since she believed that the humans were the true heirs of the mantle of responsibility. Once she created the ark that would save the remaining species of the human race, guaranteeing that the humans would thrive eons later and would roam the galaxy, she locked away the Didact in a cryptum. The librarian did this in hopes that her husband would use the meditation to reach the domain and change his thought process on his plans for the humans and the war. If all went to plan, in the librarian's mind, the Didact would awaken and use his knowledge to educate the humans so that they would obtain the mantle of responsibility using the Janus key. The librarian then sealed Requiem and controlled the Prometheans, giving them orders to prevent the Didact from awakening before his meditation was complete. In the meantime, his other self, the Isodidact, activated the Halo Array, wiping out all forms of intelligent life across the galaxy. After being one of the few that survived the Great Purification, Isodidact was found guilty for his betrayal of the ecumene of mendicant bias. Following these events, we don't know too much on his whereabouts or what happened to him. Other than that, after he was done with his war efforts, he settled down, got married, and had a child. We all know the story of Halo 4. Master Chief would free the UR Didact on Requiem, where we came to find out that the meditation did not work, and his original plans to turn the humans into Prometheans were still his plans. But thankfully, at the end, John was able to detain him, but not entirely finish him as we thought. With the release of the Halo comic, Halo Escalation, we would see what transpired after the events of Halo 4. The UR Didact ended up surviving his fall into the slip space rupture and ended up being transported to Installation 03, very near to the Composer's Forge. Black Team would locate the Didact not too long after his initial arrival, but they would be quickly disposed of by the Didact once he became conscious. Now that he was fully in control of the situation, his next step was to find a way to activate the rings to use against Earth. While this was going on, Master Chief would rejoin with his old friends and reform Blue Team, and together they traveled to Installation 03 with the plans to stop the UR Didact in his tracks. Once John found himself in the control room with the activation index in his hands, he came to the conclusion that the UR Didact would not be able to be taken out by any conventional means. John, with the help of others, was able to deactivate the safety protocols of the ring and was transported out while the UR Didact was burned and disintegrated, but again, now without having himself remain in digital form. Up until this point, this is all we know of our longtime nemesis, but recently during the Halo World Championship in Seattle, 343 revealed to us that author Kelly Gay is working on an upcoming Halo novel that will continue the story of the Didact. Well then, let's begin with our fan theories. How is it that the Didact could possibly return? Well, there are quite a few ways actually. For example, thanks to some old Halo 5 concept art, we can see some sketches on what he could have possibly looked like had he returned in Halo 5. We must remember, however, that concept art is just that, a concept, and would later have to have gone through revisions before being approved in the final version of the game, in which, in Halo 5, it was not, so it must be taken with a grain of salt. But nonetheless, thanks to this concept art, we do know that 343 did have in mind that the Didact survived and at one point could return to the franchise, and this idea can now finally be brought to fruition with the upcoming novel. With this old concept, we can see that the Didact was able to transcend his digital form that remained and repurposed himself in a new physical form, very similar to what Ultron was able to achieve in Marvel's Avengers. Another way that we could see the Didact return could be thanks to the ISO Didact, of which we don't know too much about what ended up happening to him, and nothing is stopping us from seeing his return to possibly help his old friend, the UR Didact. Regardless of how we see him return, it is clear that there is still much more to tell of his compelling story, and as a matter of fact, in Halo Infinite's campaign, we can hear some dialogue from the Didact in a conversation with the Endless, the future enemies of Halo Infinite. Here's that dialogue.
If they cannot be purged, they must be contained. Balance restored. Balance restored.
No being will ever learn the truth of what we have done today. This is our darkest moment. Our eternal shame. Forever hidden, buried with these rings.
It must be done. We have no choice.
Is there an agreement? Consensus?
There is.
As we can see, the Endless have more than enough reasons to want revenge on the Forerunners after being freed. And if the Didact returns with the same force and power of his Promethean army, then we are surely in for quite the treat in what's to come within the story of the Halo universe. But getting back on topic, it is without a doubt that the Didact will be returning, granted in sight of an upcoming novel, but who's to say that we don't see the continuation of that novel in some form, whether in a future new game or DLC of Halo Infinite? I don't see why not. On the contrary, I welcome it. With that being said, don't forget to leave a like, comment on any of the fan theories you may have on the return of the Didact, subscribe to our channel, and click the notification bell so that you don't miss out on any future videos. Thanks again, guys. My name is Christian, and that is all the Halo news now. Peace out.